Laura. Is that Laura Thomas?
Oh, she does and she doesn't. I don't know, pause.
They're good to really hand. They are good on them.
Una, we can hear you, so you might want to go on silent. Thanks.
Hello everyone, welcome to Scrutiny Panel 1, Tackling the Cost of Living Crisis. My name is Councillor Varlene Alexander and I'll be the chair today. So welcome panel members to the first meeting of the panel, which is being held in a hybrid form with some members and officers joining the meeting online and others being present in the council chamber. The meeting is also being live streamed on YouTube. So members and officers that are online, if you could just mute and raise your hand icon if you wish to speak. Okay, so item 1, apologies for absence. We have 1, which is Councillor Sanjay Kohli. In terms of item 2, we don't have any, I haven't been notified about any urgent matters. Item 3, has any panel members got any declaration interests or prejudicial interests that we need to be aware of? No, can't see anyone. Anyone online? No? Okay, that's great. There's no matters that need to be considered in private, so we should go on to item 5, which is the panel terms of reference and work programme. I'm sure councillors have read the panel's reference. Does anyone want to make notes on it now at the moment? Anybody? No? Anybody online? Just because there's a few of us that are new, I'll just explain a little bit about it. The terms of reference outlines the membership and general functions and specific powers of the panel. The panel is asked to consider and agree its terms of reference, making any amendments as required. The Overview and Scrutiny Committee will consider and agree the panel's terms of reference at its next meeting. Okay. Right, so in terms of non-voting advisory members, I think it's in appendix 2. Is there anyone that we would like to appoint as a co-optee member for this panel? If there's any suggestions or suitable organisations, you could let me know, or if there's anybody think of anybody at the moment, let me know. Anybody online? No, I can't see anything. Okay.
At this moment, yeah, no, I'm saying at this precise moment, it is a bit early because I was looking into it, but that was one of the questions I will be asking further on, what organizations, and then, I mean, there are several. It is a bit complex, so we just need to know what we're looking at, so we're not stepping on other panels' works. So yeah, if we can send it off to you.
Okay, thank you. In terms of the draft outline work programme which has been sent to councillors, is there anything that you'd like to again, it's a bit early on, so if there is anything that anyone would like to add, please let me know, and we can add that as we go along. So the next item is item 6, which is income inequalities in Ealing. And it's going to be, it's basically, I'm pronouncing your name incorrectly, Rajiv Alawat, the Intelligence and Corporate Performance Manager, will be giving us a presentation about that. Are you online? Hello.
I am, yes. Thank you, Councillor.
Okay. And that's going to be, it's just, yeah, so you can start. Thank you.
Okay, should I then start with the presentation? I'll share my screen.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Just be a moment. Okay, hopefully it should have come through to your screens. Could you please confirm if you can see my
Yes,
screen?
we can see it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'll proceed then. So, so yes, this is an overview of some of the key data sets we hold in terms of the personal and household income, some data around low pay in the borough, and also the levels of income deprivation that different parts of the borough suffer. So apologies, there's a lot of data and lots of tables and charts in here, but I'll try my best to explain them as much as I can. So the first thing to look at is household income. This is slightly different from personal income. And where we get this data from is a commercial data set from a company called CSCI, who provide a data set called Paycheck. And that gives us household income, which is one of its kind in terms of providing this level of information. Because normally what's existing in the public domain by way of the Office for National Statistics income data or earnings data is personal income for full-time employees. So that's only part of the picture. If two members of in the household are earning, for example, then we don't know what the household income is. So this is what is shown on the slide here, which is the median annual household income in Ealing in the different wards. Have to say this is the 23 wards, which are now a different number. So we have 24, but data doesn't yet exist for the new 24 wards. So this is still at the 23 wards level, but I think we can still see adequate detail from this. So what this shows is the annual household income for Ealing wards in 2020, 2021, and 2022. And these are color coded to show the green parts where the income is higher, and the red parts at the bottom of the table show where income is lower. One key point to take from this is towards the lower end of the scale, where the household income is almost half, or exactly half that for the wards at the top. So if you look at Southall Broadway in 2020, it's 20,424, whereas for Southfield, which has always been at the top, it's 40,747. And the latest round in 2022 is similarly 48,728 at the top for Southfield and 24,752 for Southall Broadway. The two white columns show the percentage change between the years, so 2020 and 2021, and similarly for 21 and 22. And what's stark here is probably the amount of change in the last year. Having said that, I think we need to treat these figures with a slight caution, given some difficulties in the collection of data, given COVID and furlough and all those things. So the Office for National Statistics even cautions us to not compare year-on-year change, or not read too much into the year-on-year change, but look at the longer-term trends. Nevertheless, this is still interesting to see. So we have seen a sharp 15.8% increase in the annual household income for Ealing as a borough between 21 and 22. And it is still slightly lower than the London increase, which is 18%, shown at the bottom of the table here. And this is it's a similar trend across the UK as well. So this is the overall picture in terms of household income. Of course, it's the median income, which is the number of households earning above and below this level is the same. If you look at average or the mean income, then of course the figures are slightly higher, given some parts of the borough are much more affluent. So the overall average is influenced by that. And then we look at the position of Ealing in terms of London overall, and we rank 21st in London. City of London being at the top, earning annual household income there much more than 50,000, so 52,429, followed by Kensington and Chelsea and Richmond upon Thames as number 3. And towards the bottom of the scale is Newham, which is 27,259. So again, almost half of the highest earning borough, and Barking and Dagenham, but we are 21st ranked in London. Our annual household income is also marginally lower than the outer London average, which is 35,007. So yeah, just about £500 less than the outer London. And of course, inner London boroughs are have higher earning employees. So there the average is 38,471. And then we move on to a bit more granular and longer term detail, which is available from the ONS survey. It's called the Annual Survey of Hours and Earnings. And businesses and employers are sampled, and they are asked to furnish information on what employees are paid in terms of their hourly and weekly pay. And this is the so that contributes to this data set. So we've got a much longer term information from this data going all the way back to 2008. So the chart and the table here shows the level of gross weekly pay for full-time employees, which is taken as the benchmark for pay. Of course, there's figures available for part-time employees and other time periods as well, but this is the core data set that forms a very robustly comparable information. So what this shows us is that the gross median weekly pay for full-time employees in Ealing has risen around £115 from £556 per week to £671 between 2008 and 2021. So that's a rise of 21%. However, it's still less than the rise in London, which is 25%, and in the UK, which is even higher at 27%. Still, none of this is cancelling out the rise in inflation. So if you look at the CPI index, prices rose by about 32% during the same period. So there's a net loss in terms of pay growth. And the final point here is we also get figures for the lowest 10% of earners, and median pay there was broadly in line with the trend seen for the overall pay figure. So there's not much in there. Just from the graph, we may also see that Ealing tends to fluctuate a bit more in terms of annual pay growth as compared to the London and the UK pays. So the green line in between the two, we can see it goes up and down a bit more. Moving on to looking at the year-on-year change in full-time weekly pay. And again, that fact that was shown on the previous slide is evident here, where although the annual change was fairly steady for most of the other regions, i.e. London and UK, for Ealing, there were negative trends in 3 of the years so far, which was 2012, 2015, and then 2019. So the bottom table, which is again color-coded, shows the 3 red squares for Ealing for those years where pay actually dipped rather than grew, whereas it kept on growing for the other regions. The other thing probably to look at is since 2015, there has been a fair amount of pay growth across all 3 regions, and it's more so the case for Ealing. So the green bars are relatively higher for many of the years in 2018 as well as 2021 as compared to the other 2 regions. Next up is gender pay gap, which looks at full-time weekly pay for males and females, or men and women. And what we can see here is back in 2008, there was a gap of 119 per week between what men were paid and what women were paid. And then steadily it has narrowed over the years. And encouragingly, albeit the difference is not huge, in the last couple of years, it has been reversed. So women are being paid slightly more in 2020 and 2021. So that's encouraging, and that's positive, as shown by the boxes here. So 10 pounds more in 2020 and 13 pounds more per week in 2021. This is a slide that shows employees earning below the London living wage, which was, if I have my figures correct, was £10.75 per hour in 2021. And this shows that Ealing ranks 12th in terms of the proportion of jobs that are paid below the London living wage. So that's 26%. And in terms of the overall share of jobs that pay below the London living wage, Ealing has 4.3% of them, which is one of the higher proportions as compared to the rest of the London boroughs. So Hillingdon has 4.6%, Enfield 4%. Harrow also, if I can find here, Harrow has 2.6% of the total share, but Harrow has a much larger percentage of jobs paying below the London living wage, so that's 34.2%. Bexley tops the chart at 40.7% jobs paying below the London living wage. And again, the trend is a bit greener, or the proportions are much smaller for most of the inner London boroughs, and outer London boroughs figure at the top of the table, which are towards the red zone. This slide looks at the indices of deprivation, which get released only once in a few years on a 4-yearly cycle. We don't have news yet on when the next round will be released, but the latest one was released back in 2019. And it tracks deprivation, or I should say relative deprivation, in a number of domains, and then calculates an overall index of multiple deprivation. What we are showing here is the income deprivation domain of the indices of deprivation. And the table shows where we were in terms of our rank of scale. By scale, we mean what proportion of our population was income deprived or relatively income deprived. So encouragingly, we improved our rank. In terms of how these indices work, it's the higher the number, the more deprived the borough is, the lower the number, and the higher the number, the less deprived it is, which means back in 2015, we were the 28th most income deprived borough in England and Wales, whereas in 2019, our rank improved to 34. And the figures on the right show the scale. The scale is the size of the population that's income deprived. So in 2015, we had 56,435 residents who were income deprived, as compared to 48,235 who were income deprived in 2019. Income deprivation is calculated based on a number of indicators, things like people seeking unemployment-related benefits, and so on. So it's a fairly complex calculation, but this is what it leads to. So this is shown for all of the West London Alliance boroughs, and all of them showed an improvement in 2019, although the order of the ranking didn't change. So Ealing was the second in 2015, and it remained at the same position in 2019. This one shows a more granular picture of income deprivation at the LSOA level, which is lower layer super output area, which is a small area of the borough. It's smaller than a postcode, and it's a census-based geography. And indices of deprivation are actually calculated at the LSOA level. And what this shows is 19 of the 23 wards we had back in 2019 were in the 5 most deprived deciles. Deciles are equal 10% chunks in terms of deprivation. So if majority of our wards or nearly 83% fell within the 50% most deprived wards in England. And again, the other thing we can see from here is the least deprived areas lie in the center of the borough, Ealing and Hanwell largely, and towards the extremities of the borough, we have much more relative income deprivation. So Southall, in particular, Dormers Wells ward, and again in Acton, East Acton and South Acton in particular, and towards Northolt. And this one shows the income deprivation, the position of income deprivation at a ward level. So the first column shows the rank of each ward within Ealing, ranked from 1 to 23. The second one is where that ward ranks amongst all of the London wards, which are something like 800 wards in total. And finally, the third column shows where the Ealing ward ranks in England overall, which has something like more than 7,200 wards. So the only, so in terms of the color coding here, the red ones are wards amongst the top 20% most deprived, so the first 2 deciles of deprivation. So these 5 wards fall within the 20% most deprived wards in England. And again, something to be said about 4 of these wards are Southall wards, only Northolt West End is outside of Southall. And incidentally, Northolt West End also falls in the 10% most deprived wards nationally, which is a slight improvement because in 2015, we had 3 Ealing wards that fell within the 10% or the first decile, but no more the case in 2019. At the other end of the scale, we have relative affluence or less relative deprivation, I should say, because indices of deprivation do not measure affluence, but they measure relative deprivation. So how deprived one area is as compared to another area, not absolute deprivation. So at the positive end of the scale, we have North Greenford, Ealing Broadway, Walpole, Southfield, Hanger Hill, and Northfield. And Northfield actually is also in London amongst the 20% least deprived, although we have no ward in the 20% least deprived in England. And this one shows the range of deprivation that falls within each ward. So we shouldn't be thinking of wards presenting a very uniform or coherent picture, but it's such a range. So if we take Cleveland, for example, Cleveland had LSOAs which were in the first decile, so most deprived 10%, and it also has LSOAs in the 9th decile, so the least or the 20% least deprived. So such a wide range of deprivation within the same ward, and that's true for many other wards. So we have Walpole as well, and then we have at the other end Hanger Hill. On the other hand, some wards have very concentrated levels of relative deprivation. So if you look at Northolt West End, all of the LSOAs fall within deciles 2 and 3. So yeah, they just don't go beyond the 3rd decile. And similarly for Southall Green, all of the population, all of the LSOAs fall within deciles 3 and 4. So a much narrower range. But for all of the other wards, we have a much wider range, which kind of suggests there are pockets of deprivation and pockets of affluence in all parts of the borough, except some. But mostly it's a range. And towards the less deprived areas, we can see Northfield starts with decile 5 and goes to decile 9. So yeah, there's no LSOA within the bottom 50%. It only starts with 5. And that's it. Just as a headline summary, of course, you should have received the more detailed Word document as the report, which has a lot more narrative and many more charts and graphs. So yeah, thank you. Questions?
Thank you. Thank you. Has anyone got any questions? Councillor.
Very briefly, at the beginning, you presented numbers for 2022. Is that tax year till 2022 or an estimate for 22?
It would be an estimate for 2022 because this comes from CACI paycheck. But I'll take that question back and actually find out what this data refers to. So what we get is an annual update of the paycheck data, which comes around June time. So this one came only last week, actually. So yeah, this is the 2022 update, as CACI call it. But what data point is being referred to, I can confirm. But yeah, this is an estimate because it's drawn from a number of household surveys and other things. It's not, it's not drawn from a specific tax data set.
So then I've got a question then, because at the beginning, I'm sure you said that you've got 20, I don't think you've got the new ward, which is North Acton ward data information. Do you know when that will be added then?
So the Office for National Statistics haven't yet released the new geography based on the new wards, which they intend to do shortly. So the wait is the 2021 census data.
Right.
So the new census geography will be released fairly soon. And it will take a period of time before all of the data gets remapped to the new geographies. Some of it has started being remapped, but it's old data. So what, for example, the GLA have done is remap the 2011 census data to the new wards, but that's still old. More recent data isn't available for the new wards yet, so maybe for a few months.
Yeah, I think you kind of asked the question that I was going to ask, but I was just going to say, will the boundaries change not reflected in here be taken into account at some stage for this panel? Because I know it's going to take time, and also how will that affect, or will it affect what we put forward? I mean, I know it's not going to be enormous, but it will make a difference. And also the bit where in the introduction on income and low pay, how is this calculated as far as children and older people are concerned? Because I mean, the older people are obviously more affected because they're retired or they're on pension. And reading the papers further along, you do say a lot more on the older people's older people being affected more by this. So I just needed a bit of clarity because, children are obviously, it could be children who are, either in foster care, or is it children with low income families? I think some clarity on that would be quite helpful, because that's a question that came to my mind as soon as I read what I was reading.
Yes, indeed. So I didn't include the income deprivation affecting children's index and the older people index here for reasons of time and detail. But essentially, it is measured as children in low-income families, and there is another measure that looks at households below average income, which is 60% or less than 60% of the median income. And children living in those households are then deemed as children in poverty. But yeah, that's how it's done. And similarly, for the older people, it is calculated by looking at the age that is being impacted by income. So income by age, that variable goes into the calculation of the older people index. If that answers your question, but I can come back with more technical details and the actual definition or the indicators that go into those calculations.
I think it would be helpful if you did come back with perhaps a little bit more.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Councillor Kumar, for that. Also, just following on from Councillor Kumar, do you have any ethnicity? I can't even speak today. Have you got, in terms of ethnicity, I can't even speak, sorry, I do apologise, breakdown of, you know, in terms of, you know, the deprivation in socio, yeah.
Unfortunately not, or not for this report, because I mean, I'll be honest, there was slightly limited time to put this together, and it's a matter of more research and more analysis to do that. But equally, there isn't a lot of data available for ethnicities, because that's something that's a population attribute that's always traditionally available from the census. And not a lot of official statistics are calculated that has ethnicity built into them. So it's very hard to come by robust statistics on ethnicity. But there is some information. For example, we could look at employment rates by ethnicity. So that data is available.
Yeah.
It doesn't give income, but yeah, we can look at employment rates. Yeah, so yeah, it's limited. It is there.
And in areas, I guess, could we do that as well? Is that possible? So employment rates and the areas that they may be living, is that possible?
Unfortunately not, no, because where that data comes from is something called an annual population survey that the ONS do. And it's got a decent sample at the national level, but when you start breaking it down to the local authority level, even there the estimates aren't hugely robust. And if you further break it down to ethnicities, then it's not robust at all. So the best we can get is at the borough level, but yeah, we can't get a sub-borough analysis.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? Councillor Brett.
So it's just following on from what Councillor Alexander said. Do we not have any type of data on our kind of the demographics across all of our wards in the borough that could maybe overlay the data that you've got on this report to give us a better understanding of the kind of the deprivation by kind of different communities? Or is it just too difficult to find that?
So deprivation as presented here is available at the area level, but that's it. We don't have deprivation by ethnicity, for example. So I would say a very rough proxy for ethnicity level deprivation would be looking at areas. So if we readily see Southall is relatively more deprived, then we know that Southall is very diverse and has got a very high proportion of ethnic minorities living there. So that's a very rough proxy. Of course, it's not exact, but unfortunately, deprivation and income data is not available for ethnicities.
You know, I'm quite surprised because I think every other form that comes by or a survey, they do ask about ethnicity, so it must be recorded somewhere. But, you know, we'll look into that further. This would make it a bit difficult for us to actually contact groups that we hope to interview or bring to the panel. So unless we have some idea, it would be quite challenging.
Yeah, so we can provide a rough idea. We'll go away and I'll go away and have a look at what we can do. But I think part of the answer was in your question where you say lots of data is collected in surveys, and by their very nature, people don't fill in that information. So when we ask those questions in surveys, people just leave that blank. So because it's not mandatory data, has created this data gap, and it has been quite evident in what we did for the COVID pandemic, for example. So even NHS didn't have robust data on ethnicity because it's not mandatory. Ethnicity is not mandatory in schools, so just by that very nature, it's not deemed as official statistics because it's not robust. So we can't draw robust conclusions based on that partial data, which is why census is the only place where we can get that. And thankfully, we are in a period where we'll soon get census data emerging. So we just got the first results released last week, and more data. Of course, that's only the population level information. But in autumn time, from October onwards, we'll have much more detail from the 2021 census. So then we should be able to look at things like occupation and employment by ethnicity and a lot of detail.
When do you think you'll be able to produce another report for this panel in regards to that census information?
So it just depends on when census data is available. So the ONS currently is saying that will start becoming available from October onwards. So we'll be looking at sometime after that. We do, from the corporate team, produce briefings, or we will produce briefings and analysis on the census anyways. So that will be available to everyone. But if there's any specific analysis from this panel's perspective, we can look into that as well, around, sometime after October.
Thank you. Also, and I've got another question actually. In your presentation, you mentioned there was dips in 2012, 2015 and 2019. Do you know, I can't remember do you know why there was fluctuations? Or why, because you mentioned that Ealing in particular have fluctuations?
Unfortunately not, and I could very well anticipate that question, but yeah, to be honest, I don't know what happened. I mean, surely looking back to 2008 and 9, if we go back before the financial crisis of 2008 and 9, we could see that income kept on growing. But what happened in 2012 and 15 and 19 is not something I have come across in terms of why. Sorry.
Thank you. Any questions online? Any questions online? Oh, Councillor Martin.
I've got my hand up, sorry. I was just going to ask a question about something I think we have talked about before, which was levels of, I think they called it economic inactivity amongst certain groups within different parts of the borough. That would be people, for example, that were single parents and had difficulties getting employment or care responsibilities. And I seem to remember in the past, when we looked at it, that North Alt West End, I'm the councillor for North Alt West End, had quite high levels of economic inactivity. Have you got the current statistics for that? And could you add them into another report or later reports?
Yeah, we do have more detail on economic activity. So yeah, we can look into that.
It's people that there's barriers for employment, particularly, yeah. Because I think that also will affect some of the figures that we are looking at. And similarly, in some wards, there will be issues like levels of, I suppose, proficiency in English and also qualifications, where we could sort of drill down a little bit more to understand why some of the income levels are so low.
Yeah, unfortunately, it won't be all of the detail won't be available. For example, if we look at economic activity by reason, why is someone not active, economically active, then that perhaps doesn't exist. But we can correlate that with other information, because again, this comes from the census again. So census does give all of that information, employment, economic activity, and other characteristics. For example, if they're a carer, what their qualifications are, etc. But yeah, it's not current, unfortunately.
Okay.
But I'll look into it.
Okay, thanks.
Any more questions? Any more questions? Okay. Thank you for your, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correct, Raju. Thank you.
Rajiv,
Yeah, thank you for your report. It was really interesting. I think what I'd say is we would like a breakdown of, you know, perhaps different social groups, particularly the older adults, I guess, and children, if possible, at another meeting when you get that information. That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll go away and have a look at what's available, certainly. But thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Cheers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So item 7 is the local welfare assistance and support available with the cost of living. And that will be an overview of the welfare benefits and financial assistance and personal budget support available and the role of the community hubs. And that will, presentation will be done by Joanna
Pavlidis.
Yeah, sorry, thank you.
So I'll just share my presentation before I start. Can everyone see my presentation?
Not at the moment, no. Yeah, I can see it now.
Okay, so obviously I've created a quite comprehensive report which outlines all available support, and I've also included in that support I've included social security benefits administered by DWP and also all the benefits administered by the council, because although we're talking about the cost of living today and the support available, I think it's important to raise awareness of those benefits available to residents, to make sure that we're maximising take up and people are not missing out on any of those benefits. And in addition to the mainstream benefits, we've had the central government providing one-off grants over the last 2 years as well to the councils, for the councils to help individual residents. And those grants were initially provided for us to help residents with a impact of COVID-19 pandemic. And over the last 6 months, those grants continue to be provided to help with the cost of living crisis. So in my presentation, I'm concentrating on more sort of the additional support that we are providing, rather than just giving an overview of all the benefits, because I think it would be a lot of information to take in. So in terms of the sources and support available, there was an announcement made by the government on 26th of May, where they announced a variety of measures to provide support to individual households, and that's specifically with cost of living crisis, in particular cost of energy. And at the moment, following that announcement, there are 3 main streams of support that are being delivered over sort of a period of this year, up to from June up to the end of March next year. And one of the sources of support is the central government. So it's mainly the support is being provided via DWP, Department of Work and Pensions, and HMRC, to recipients of benefits and pensions. So the DWP normally administers benefits like universal credit, income support, job seekers allowance. HMRC administers tax credits, which are being phased out by universal credit. The second stream of support is coming from the councils, and that's where we've received grants, and we as a council delivering at the moment to different support measures. So one is targeted support via energy rebate scheme, and then the second bit is the household support fund, and I'll talk about them in more detail later on in the presentation. And then the third stream of support is the actual energy companies. So they delivering support directly via people's accounts and to people's accounts for gas and electricity. In terms of the central government, so that's the support provided by DWP and HMRC, they are available as one-off payments to households on all means tested benefits. The support is also available to pensioners who are receiving pension credit, which is paid via DWP, and also people with disabilities paid via DWP. And there are various levels of support, and I've got a little table to show you who gets how much and when, depending on which category they fall into. The second part of the support is the in council support. So as I've mentioned, is the household support fund, which is being administered from sort of June and end of May up to September, which is the first tranche, and then there will be a second tranche of that household support fund, which will be provided from October up to the end of March, and we are currently awaiting details from the government about that funding. The second bit of the support that Ealing provides is the energy rebate scheme, which is the £150 that is being paid to every council taxpayer in band A to D properties, and this is a main scheme. There's also for the energy rebate scheme, there's also element of discretionary scheme, which the council is currently still working on, and the details will be approved via cabinet, I believe, in August or September. Part of the support as well that Ealing's got available is the ongoing support that have existed since pre-COVID times. So the local welfare assistance scheme. We also administer discretionary housing payments, discretionary council tax discount, and healthy homes Ealing. So I'll talk about them in more detail later on in the presentation. And the third sort of stream of support that I've mentioned.
Sorry to interrupt. In
Yeah.
terms of your presentation,
Yeah,
can you put it on slideshow?
it is on the slideshow.
It's not coming up on the.
Are you not able to see that? Let me stop sharing and I'll try and reshare the presentations. Apologies.
You're still on the first page.
All right, apologies, I wasn't aware. Let me just reshare. Let me share the window. Are you able to see the presentation now? Sorry.
Not at the moment, no.
Yep.
Yes, we can see it now.
Are you able to see when I'm changing the slide? Sorry, can I just experiment a little bit to make sure that everyone can see what I can see? So I'm currently on slide 4.
Yep. Do you want to?
Yeah, I'll move on to slide 5. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll say, is that format okay? So just to make sure that you can see all that.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Apologies for this. So the support from energy companies. So the support available is a £400 one-off credit that will be paid to all households. That credit does not need to be repaid. Energy suppliers will be delivering this support directly to households with domestic electricity meter or gas meters over the 6 months period from October. So it will be administered between October and end of March. Those customers who paid bills by direct debit or they will receive a credit onto their account. And for those customers with prepaid meters, those will have the money applied to their meter, or they will be paid via a voucher. So can you, I moved on to slide 6. Can you see the table?
Yes, we can see the table.
Brilliant, thank you. So this is a summary of support available by the scheme, who administers the scheme, how much people can get, when that will be paid, and whether application is required or not, plus eligibility criteria. So for majority of this support, the application is not required. So the biggest payment is one-off cost of living payment, which will be administered by DWP, or if someone's in receipt of tax credits by HMRC, it will be paid. The total amount of support will be £650 per household, and that's split into 2 payments. So the first payments are going out this month in July, and then the second payment will be paid automatically in October, and it will be paid to people in receipt of those benefits. So universal credit, job seekers allowance, employment support allowance, income-based, income support, working tax credit, child tax credit, and pension credit. So these people will receive that credit. In addition, for pensioners, there will be one-off cost of living payment as well of £300. It will be paid in November or December, and it will be paid as a top-up of winter fuel payments. So those pensioners who normally receive fewer winter payments will also receive the £300 in addition. The third one-off payment will be issued to those who are disabled in receipt of disability benefits. This will be issued in September payments, and that's £150. So it's possible that, for example, if someone's on universal credit and also disabled, they will get 650 payments, and in addition, because they're disabled, they will get 150 payments. So that the one sort of payment does not exclude the other. The energy bill support scheme, so I've already mentioned, that's a credit to people's gas or electricity accounts, and that applies to all households regardless of income. Energy rebate, which is paid by the council, so that's the £150 that I've mentioned before, and that's administered in 2 different ways. So when someone pays their council tax by direct debit, we have got their bank details, so we are able to make automatic credits into people's bank accounts. Where people don't pay by direct debit and we don't have their bank details, we've made an application online available, so people can go online and apply for that 150. And as a last resort, if we do not receive an application, then those people who are entitled will receive a credit of £150 to their council tax account. So no one will lose out regardless. Everyone will get their £150 as they're entitled to. And then the Household Support Fund is also administered by the councils, by Ealing Council, and that we administer in various forms and amounts depending on circumstances. So Household Support Fund is provided as a sort of lump sum grant, and then the council has to decide how to administer it. And I've got a number of slides to show you how we administer the Household Support Fund depending on people's circumstances. So that's slide 7. So that's details of the Household Support Fund. So the Household Support Fund was made available from April 22 to September 2022. And like I said, we are awaiting details of the Household Support Fund post-September. There is a extended support for families under the Household Support Fund, and we've identified a number of families eligible for the support. So in the first instance, we are providing support to families eligible for free school meals where eligibility is based on low income. And we are issuing supermarket vouchers to those families, and the value of the supermarkets vouchers is £15 per child in May, and then in July the families eligible will receive £90 per child. The reason for this is that we've linked the award of supermarket vouchers with school holidays as a support for sort of compensating people for the period of holidays where children do not receive free school meals via schools. With the supermarket vouchers, we're supporting currently around 13,500 children and around 9,000 households, and the numbers do vary from sort of month to month as people become or stop becoming eligible for the support. In terms of a second group of households that we've identified as eligible for support is the families with children under the age of 5 in receipt of housing benefit and or council tax reduction. We identify those families from our data sets and our records. And again, we issue very similar amounts. So in May, families received £15 per household. And in July, we will issue households with £90 of supermarket vouchers. This normally supports around 1,200 households. Again, numbers do vary from month to month. Next group of people eligible for support is our in care leavers. They will receive the same amount of vouchers again in May and in July, and that the vouchers support 277 care leavers. There is also support for pensioners, and that was a condition. The support of condition, support for pensioners was a condition of the household support grant. And we had to spend a third of the allocation towards pensioners. So we will be providing one-off payments to pensioners via post office in July and August, and the one-off payment will be around £103.79. The data has been provided by DWP, so we've got a full set of data of people who are pensioners on pension credit guarantee, together with addresses and telephone numbers, and that's the data set that we'll be using to distribute the support. For other households who do not fall into those sort of earlier categories but may also suffer hardship, we've made some funding available via our local welfare assistance scheme. So our local welfare assistance scheme has been reviewed, and we have expanded our eligibility criteria to include also households who are in employment but on low income. Earlier, we were only providing support to people on benefits, but obviously with the additional funding, we are able to support people in employment as well. In terms of other support, so the council has operated and continues to operate a number of discretionary schemes. So like I've mentioned, we've always had, since 2013, we've operated local welfare assistance scheme, which is designed to help people with crisis and provide money and resources for food, energy bills, furniture and wider essentials. We've also got discretionary housing payments, which provides residents with additional help with rent, or we can also provide people with help to secure new tenancy, and that support is targeted for those who are already in receipt of housing benefit or in receipt of universal credit housing element. We've also got discretionary council tax discounts, so those customers who are in receipt of council tax reduction but may still need additional support. The discretionary council tax discount is also available, but the discount is also available to residents who may not qualify for our council tax reduction scheme. However, they are experiencing a hardship, and so they still may be eligible for that support. There's also the Healthy Homes Healing Scheme, and this is designed to support residents with improving energy efficiency of their homes, also helping people access various schemes and grants available to make their homes more energy efficient, to access various social tariffs and other community support. So I'll move on to the next slide. Now, just to demonstrate the impact of the various support provided by, all these sort of streams, I've put together some case studies, and just to demonstrate how much support people will get in terms of depending on the household composition and type of income. So the first case study, I've got a single parent with 2 children of school age who is on universal credit and living in a Band C property. So they will be entitled to energy bill support scheme, which is the £400. They will be entitled to the council's energy rebate scheme of £150. The DWP cost of living one-off payment of £650, and then Ealing Household Support Fund £210. So altogether, up to sort of so far, the families on top of their benefits and possible earnings will get £1,400 in additional support. And obviously, it also very much depends on the details of the household support scheme post-October, which will make additional funding available to those customers. The next sort of case study is based on a couple living with 3 children of school age. They're working and on low income, so in receipt of universal credit, living in a Band C property. So again, very similar type of support together with the Ealing Household Support Fund. The total value of additional support will be £1,500 so far. Case study number 3, it's a couple with no children. One person in the household is in receipt of employment support allowance and disability living allowance. They live in a Band B property. So as you can see, they will receive the government support. There is no automatic support from the Ealing Household Support Fund. However, that's available from local welfare assistance if they are in hardship. But altogether, they will so far receive £1,350 additional support to help with the cost of living crisis. Case number 4, single people who are often sort of also struggling in terms of cost of living crisis, because being single households, they do have limited resources. They will receive up to £1,200 support, and again, local welfare assistance scheme is available should they wish to apply and should they be in need of additional assistance. And case 5 is a pension or pension credit guarantee. This demonstrates sort of the support that is provided to pensioners in addition to the statutory benefits and pensions. And in this case, this pensioner on guaranteed credit will receive just over £1,600 support so far from the government and from the council. In addition to the financial support, the council also provides sort of the practical support for individuals as well. And we, as a council, provide holistic support for employment. So it's a joint initiative between local welfare assistance, employment and skills team, connections who work with young people, and local JCP. We're providing, at the moment, we're running a program which is called Steps for Success, and that's designed to bring people back into employment, especially those people who have been impacted by COVID-19, but people who also are sort of in employment with multiple barriers to employment. We are providing holistic approach and trying to deliver support in terms of various employment barriers. So some people may need support with budgeting because the debt is also a huge sort of barrier into employment. So we're providing budgeting support, practical support in terms of childcare, training and skills, CV and interview preparation. For those people with multiple barriers, we do provide one-to-one intensive support, and that consists of a number of appointments with our caseworkers who will make themselves available for any support that the individual requires. And also part of this holistic support, we provide access to IT equipment and data. And at the moment, we do have it's thanks to the council's support and grants, and also government grants available. We've secured 240 devices and 100 data contracts for those people whose main barrier to employment is actually access to internet, access to digital skills. So that's also part of the holistic support for employment. In terms of assisting residents to access this support, there's a number of things that we are currently doing. So we've got community hubs currently, and this is a new initiative. So as a part of the sort of pandemic and the learning that has come from pandemic, we've learned that there is a need and there are benefits of providing customers with more holistic service rather than sort of providing access to individual services. So the hubs are situated in Ealing, Acton, Southall and Norfolk libraries, and our staff is trained to answer queries in multiple from sort of around multiple areas. They're also able to provide residents with support to access various services. Many council services are currently online, so staff is trained to provide access to those services. Staff is also trained to speak to customers to establish what other support the individual may need. So it's sometimes residents come with an issue, but in conversation it is apparent that people may need additional help with other areas, and their staff is trained to provide support with that. We also provide help with navigating the council's website and assistance with online account, and that's a lot of people accessing My Account to deal with their council tax or benefit claims, etc. We also help with liaising with back office for more complex queries, and also signposting to community support. So at the moment, the community hubs are being prototyped, so it's a pilot. We are still learning from what we've discovered sort of running those community hubs in the last 3 months. And we are looking at sort of what other service delivery can happen in those 4 libraries, but also whether those community hubs can be developed in other libraries to provide that community, a similar community hub in each town in Ealing Borough. There's also other support that we provide to residents to access support. So if the residents telephone our call centre, all staff is trained to help people deal with online applications. So if people signal that they're having difficulties with completing forms online, our staff can assist. We've also created a special line for energy bill rebate. It's a separate telephone number, so people can access this support fairly quickly. We've also recently created a special web page and to provide people with summary of information on support available, and that page summarizes the support that I've been talking about today. Because of the sort of different channels the support is coming from, the some residents find it confusing. So we've put the page together with various links as well to information on budgeting, information on benefits, etc. And also as a part of the promotion of Household Support Fund and the vouchers that we're administering to children on free school meals. We're doing a lot of comms around the times when we're administering the vouchers, and we're promoting the vouchers, making sure that people do redeem them, and also at the same time we're promoting local welfare assistance as an additional form of support for people who might be getting the vouchers but also still in need of additional support. So that's me done. So if there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Joanna. That was very informative. Is there any questions? Councillor Hirsch?
Yeah, thank you very much for this presentation. I think there is probably lots more in your presentation. It would be great if we get these, because it's a bit of a challenge for my eyesight, I'll have to admit. Lots there, but your statement, some residents might be confused with the details. Actually, I'm still, there is so much there. I wonder how we make sure one person with multiple possibilities of getting support really gets all the support, because for me that's the main thing. There are so many sources of potential support for a resident. How do they make sure that they really, how do we make sure they get all of this, and you know, we really deliver all of the support which is provided?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Hirsch. Also, sort of what Councillor Hirsch had mentioned, you mentioned about a section on the website that people could go onto. I haven't actually seen that section on the website, the council website. But I'm just curious, wondering, in terms of what Councillor Hirsch said, is there any way that, you know, there could be a calculator, or is there a calculator where somebody could sort of work out what they're eligible for?
So can I just, so in terms of the multiple sources, I agree, it is very confusing for customers. And unfortunately, this is something that the government's decided, and you know, rather than delivering support through one channel, there are 3 different channels that people are being supported from. I think the good thing about it is that people don't need to apply for majority of that support. So that the support that is being delivered by DWP and even the council, so energy rebate, £150, and household support fund, majority of that support is being provided automatically. So people don't need to apply, don't need to approach the council. We do make sure that we make sort of other departments within the council as aware of the support. So we've circulated the presentation. We've circulated the presentation to a wider audience, like our community and voluntary groups. Our staff is also trained on this support. The page, I'll see if I can just bring it up quickly, but the page that I've mentioned does have links to the calculator, benefit calculator. So it's very, very comprehensive. So it provides information from benefits and what people might be eligible for, to actually some practical help. I don't know if you can see my page.
This is the thing, Joanna, I am on the council website, and I think it needs to be in a more central, because I can't find it.
Okay,
So,
I will liaise with our web team whether we can sort of do something on the first page, and I'll speak to our web team. I don't know if you can see my screen, but we've kind of summarised what I've talked about today, with various links to the support.
Sorry, Joanna, I can't see your screen.
Okay, So can I just stop sharing and reshare again? Not sure what's why you can't see that. I don't think it's letting me share the websites. Sorry, apologies for this. It's not letting me share the website screen. The pages the pages is called coping with the rising cost of living, and then on top of the information that I've already provided, it has got a link to cost of living fact sheet and also London cost of living hub, which then provides the various calculators for people to access and information to access benefits, but also budgeting, help with debts, and other financial support that people might be entitled to in terms of charities and others. So it is quite comprehensive, but I will make sure that I'll speak to our web team about how we can make it a bit more visible and accessible to people.
Is there any support in terms of well-being on there as well? Because I'm slightly, if you're having difficulties, is there anything that we could put on there about well-being, if there's anything on there?
There is the page. Okay. The page for Mayor of London actually has got a slide with mental health support. Right. So if people are struggling with finances and are affected, and their mental health is affected, and that slide gives them information about mental health and how to support it, how to access it. Sorry.
Brilliant. Thank you, Councillor Brett. Do you have a question?
Yeah, sorry. It's actually kind of a two-pronged question, but in relation to what you've just mentioned around working with the communications team and also the web team, I think it's really important at key moments, like, for example, you know, we're in July now, and there's going to be some additional support for parents where the kids are going to be on school holiday. You know, it would make logical sense that that link is up as one of the first things that people see on the council website on the first page. As you know, as September and October near, people are going to start panicking about how much money they don't have and how much money they've got to find in order to, you know, be able to live and pay all of these, you know, new increases in energy bills. So actually, I think it's really, really important that we do put that at the forefront, and you know, and again, that's great for people that are digitally savvy. But we've also got to be really clever about using all of our kind of different types of community hubs that we've got. Also using the councillors, you know, we've got contacts as well within our own kind of wards, and actually really trying to get that information out there to as many people as possible. And yeah, it's brilliant that we've got a dedicated phone line. How many people are going to be manning that phone line, for example, and is that going to be on all of the comms as well? So it's just, it's all kind of related. And then just also the council tax, the rebate thing. My understanding is that we've only got maybe about half of our households paying by direct debit. So that means nearly 50% of ours, we don't have any details for them. And the last time I heard, the take up, the applications haven't been that high. So there's a kind of a disconnect there if it's the comms, or if it's the fact that a lot of those people just don't have access to the internet or just aren't digitally savvy. How are we helping them get the access to that extra £150? Thanks.
So in terms of the promoting the link, I said, you know, I will sort of speak to our web team and see whether we can make it more visible. I'm also happy to attend sort of other maybe ward forums and things to promote that, the support and to advise people. We are, like I mentioned, we are training our staff to be able to advise our service users about the support available as well. In terms of the in the energy rebate, I think I've put some details in terms of how many people are paying by direct debits, and I agree it's about 52%. And at the time I was writing the report, we had 3,425 applications, where we are expecting but we are expecting in excess of 42,000 plus. So my understanding is that there is a comms plan where we are advising customers, where we've got email addresses, telephone numbers, that there are messages to advise customers to do to go online and apply online. There's also comms going through social media, and we're also looking at sort of communicating it in other ways. So through, for example, food banks and our community and voluntary groups as well. I can provide a more detailed comms plan to the panel if that's helpful.
That'd be very helpful. Thank you. Councillor Jessel had a question, and also Councillor Kumar, and I haven't forgotten you, Councillor Martin, as well.
Thank you, Chair. My question is there a cut-off point for these financial schemes? And my other question is, well, I think you've just answered that, is how many residents have actually received this energy bills financial assistance?
Okay, so so in terms of the number of people that received the assistance, there were the initial payment was made to 47,223 households, and then the further 3,425 households received it as a sort of part of the application process. So that was early June. So what was the first question? Apologies, I haven't written it down.
My first question was, is there a cut-off point
right,
for
okay.
these financial schemes? Thank you.
So in terms of the Household Support Fund, the funding that we've received has to be spent by the council by the end of September, and we obviously making sure that is the case. So the support for families with children will be issued in July, and the support for pensioners will be issued at the end of July, beginning of August. And also local welfare assistance will be available all the way up to the end of September. And then for the DWP payments, they just being paid to the current recipients of benefits, and they being paid as specified. So if someone sort of is entitled to universal credit in October and the payment falls in October, then they will be entitled. So yes, so there is no sort of cut-off point as such. The payments are being distributed according to DWP timetable, which is in the summary table in the slides, which I'm going to distribute.
Thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Jess. Councillor Kumar, your question?
Okay, thank you. My question is on the Ealing CTR scheme. How many people are actually aware of it? And you know, I mean, maybe that might be a bit difficult to answer, but how are people made aware? So you actually, it is about communication. There is a lot of confusion. People are really quite traumatized about the council tax. So, you know, they are in fear of bailiffs. And, you know, I've had quite a few inquiries on that one. I think I know what protected category this falls under what category of claimants, but how many of these, because these are the ones who really, really need this information, and they're the ones who could actually do with help. And I know that it was pretty complex before, but it has been made easier. But I don't think that that's what's coming across, because the people are still confused and they're not aware that they're getting, you know, what they're entitled to, or if they're actually really are entitled to all this. And can I give you my second question as well, or do you want to answer this first?
Is that okay if I answer the first one, because
Yes.
it's quite
Yeah.
So in terms of the council tax reduction scheme, we simplified that scheme in 2020. So we made it as an income banded scheme where we publish income bands on the internet and people can actually see what percentage of council tax reduction they're entitled to. But it would be helpful to provide to receive maybe further feedback if you know what is confusing about the scheme, so we can sort of further look into that and perhaps where possible simplify it. Also from April 2020, what we've done is to make sure that we're maximizing take up of council tax reduction, and we're targeting the scheme to those who need it. We make automatic awards of council tax reduction once we receive a notification from DWP that someone, for example, started receiving universal credit. So there is at the moment, and it has been in place for some time now, we do receive electronic notifications from Department of Work and Pensions about people starting to receive universal credit, but also about changes to their benefits, etc. And as soon as we get a notification of someone starting to receive universal credit, for example, we will automatically apply the council tax reduction. We do not make people apply again. So we treat their notification as they claim for CTR, and that's why we and this allows us to maximize access to council tax reduction. So that's does that answer your question?
No, I actually read that, because that's in the report that you made it less laborious, but
Yeah.
there is a percentage of people who are still missing out on this. And I mean, I think from what you've just said, that once you get electronic notification, well, I think that's quite a good thing. How fast, or, you know, what is the time frame that you actually action that? Because maybe it's quite possible that there is a small percentage of people who get into difficulty, and by the time you've actually approached them or given them the money, they're already in trouble. And that's where the problem could possibly start. I think I probably could say at least two instances where this could possibly have happened. So what's the time frame from the moment you get your electronic notification to actually paying and letting the claimant or making the claimant aware that they're entitled to the CTR?
So we are very dependent. We are very dependent on Department of Work and Pensions. Because the Department of Work and Pensions takes up to 5 weeks to determine someone's universal credit entitlement and then provide us with notification. So it can take up to 35 days for us from the moment we receive a notification that someone's applied to universal credit to the point where they are entitled to universal credit. So it can take up to 5 weeks for us to determine that. We do try to enact on those notifications within the maximum 2 to 3 weeks period, but unfortunately the decision period within the DWP is quite a lengthy one. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yes, partly, but I think we'll probably have, you know, more on this as we carry on. The other thing is on the HSF funding. of, I think it's close to 2.7 million that was that the government gave to the councils. So you've got a breakdown here of the supermarket vouchers that you issued. Could I ask how and who? Is it your department? Was it you, or did you set up? How did you determine that? Actually, that might be an easier. And again, you gave just over 67,000 to the voluntary sector. How did you come to that decision? Because I'm looking at, I mean, we could ask one of these groups to actually come to the panel, but if and talk about it. So that's quite interesting that the voluntary sector was brought in and that amount was given to that. And perhaps a little bit on the admin. I mean, I know that it's probably to do with all the work, but just a little brief on the admin cost. So we know what the breakdown, how this money was used.
Okay, so in terms of the vouchers, we were looking for the most cost-effective way of distributing the supermarket vouchers, and we are distributing them through a company, Black Hawk, and the supermarket vouchers, the distribution of it does not cost the council any money. So the vouchers are basically we pay for the face value of the vouchers. And that's how they are being distributed. They distributed electronically in majority of cases where people have got no access to internet. We can distribute the voucher codes via telephone, via text message, or via letter as well. And we've been distributing them for the last 2 years. So our families are used to kind of this form of support, where people had struggled to possibly access vouchers. We did redeem the vouchers on people's behalf. So that's in terms of the vouchers. In terms of the voluntary sector, we were able to provide grants to voluntary sector under the household support grant that was applicable up to the end of March 2022. So that's the £67,000. So what we've done, we have opened an application process to the voluntary sector, and they could bid for small grants to help people with to provide support under the household support fund. And we were looking for voluntary sector that would provide alternative support to what the council was already providing. So the council was providing the vouchers, the council was providing local welfare assistance, so the BACS payments, but we were looking for obviously voluntary sector that would provide other forms of support, and some of the voluntary sector provided sort of meals and food parcels and helped with payment of bills, etc. So it was a very different form of support, and we were also relying on voluntary sector to reach out possibly to the groups that are normally maybe hard to engage with the council. For the duration of this current household support grant, unfortunately, we were unable to provide additional funding to the voluntary sector simply because the conditions of the grants were very different. So this time round, the conditions of the grants stipulated that the council had to provide a third of the a grant to families with children, third of the grant for pensioners, and then third of the grant for other households, which in fact we are providing majority of that third. We are still providing to families, so there was simply not enough money to provide to voluntary sector without reducing the sort of the minimum support that we are providing to families. In terms of admin, the only very small proportion of the grant goes towards admin, so it's around I think 5%, and it's to cover the costs of IT is to cover the costs of comms and staffing levels as well, because in terms of the local welfare assistance, for example, once we've expanded eligibility criteria and opened the local welfare assistance to people in employment but on low income, we've seen a number of application doubling. So for us to be able to provide the support, we had to employ 2 or 3 additional officers to simply deal with the applications and provide that support.
Yeah, would it be possible to actually have perhaps the names of the voluntary sector at some point, Anna?
I can provide that outside this
Yes.
meeting
Yeah,
to
outside. Yeah.
Anna Marie. Yes.
So maybe to our scrutiny office. Yep. Okay, I think any follow-up questions we can send them to.
And just to let everyone know that the Department of Work and Pensions actually scheduled to join our meeting on the 8th of December. So if you've got any questions about employment support, we can speak to DWP then. Councillor Martin, your question?
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to ask about the community hubs, and in particular, same sort of question that other people have been asking really, is how they're being publicised. I did have a look on the website, and I looked on the Northolt Library website, just to let you know, they're not mentioned there at all. I was kind of particularly looking at for the times of opening, or the hours of operation, I should say, for the hub, so I'm quite curious about that. Also, I'd be interested to see a breakdown of each of the libraries and how much take up you've had per library. And the other thing I was wondering about, I mean, you state in the report that it's predominantly people over the age of 55 that are accessing the service at the moment. I don't know if you've got a view of why that is the case. And just one other question is, what are you thinking about, or have you thought yet about how you could develop the service to provide more in the libraries? I mean, I think we probably all agree it's a really good idea that we're providing some local services, and I think it's potentially enormously useful, but it only if people know it's there and it works for them, and maybe they can get there at the times that it's open. Thanks.
So in terms of the publicity on community hubs, they were not widely publicized, and the reason being is because they were they are prototypes, like we call them, so they trials. Majority of the sort of publicity was word of mouth, and it has they have become more popular. Obviously, as we're going to be implementing them, they will be eventually publicized, but the next steps is really to analyze the data for the last 3 months in terms of who attends, what services they accessing, and then actually design the full service. So it's at the moment, you know, the community hub is kind of a couple of people, couple of members of staff with a designated space and library, but we need to look at the areas where you know, there might be a bit more you know, privacy for people who come with sensitive issues, etc. So it's other these were the trials. So there will be a report that will be going to SLT, to senior leadership team, and there will be some recommendations. Obviously, funding is a big one, because we haven't had any funding to deliver those community hubs, because again, they were prototypes, but they clearly worked very well. So therefore, we need to look into how we fund the actual service and how we develop it to make sure that we can deliver it going forward, and we can deliver it in all towns, not just the 4 libraries that were part of the trial.
Okay. And what hours do they do?
I'm not sure. I think they open to between 9 to 5. but I can confirm those opening times. And obviously, once they are established, they will be publicised on the council's website, and we will be promoting them within communities as well. I think you've asked about the attendance. So I think that the data shows that the highest footfall was for Ealing Central Library, and we still need to look into the reasons why, but we do still have people coming from different towns to Ealing Central Library, and maybe there is a part of people, some people believe that maybe coming to Central Library they will get a better service. So I think important part of the comms will be to ensure that people know that whether they go to Norfolk Library or Central Library or anywhere else, they will receive the same level of service.
Okay.
And in terms of your question around people over 55, I wouldn't want to make any assumptions, but I think it's a lot is to do with maybe digital access to digital, and people over 55 maybe not in employment may have limited access to the computer, to internet, or simply do not have the skills to interact with the council online.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Joanna, you just mentioned something that really interested me in terms of, I mean, obviously it's really difficult because obviously it hasn't been widely publicised. So I'm a bit concerned about the data that will be going to SLT, and that making sure that, there'll be funding, the correct amount of funding, because, I can imagine it being a really, really, popular service, the community hub. So I'm just, slightly worried about that. But you also said something that people have been going to Ealing, and you don't know whether that may be because they feel that they might get a better service in Ealing than other places. Is there data on that? Are you collecting that, or are you just making assumptions?
I think it's just done kind of a little bit of an assumption on my part, because obviously pre-COVID we had a central office, and a lot of times people did have to come to Purcell House to deal with either their benefit claims or housing, etc. So I think it might just be from sort of the past experiences where it may take time for people to learn about the community hubs within their community, but also to get those assurances that they will receive the same level of service everywhere in each of the libraries.
Okay. Thank you, Joanna. Is there any other questions, Councillor Hirsch?
Maybe questions we need a new report on, or for next time. They're a bit fundamental. So first one, how does the help we offer match the increase in cost of living? So we know fuel goes up by 10%, 20%, food goes up that much. Is the support which is offered actually matching the increase in cost, is one. And the other one is, what percentage of eligible people do receive the benefits? And it's especially relevant there where they're not automatically paid, because they're automatically related to something. So especially benefits which have to be requested, communicated, collected in any shape or form. So what kind of percentage of people will actually get them in the end?
So is the question about what percentage of people receive benefits in Ealing, or?
No, it's more the question, what percentage of eligible people per benefit element do actually get the benefit in the end? So if you have, for example, the rebate, the energy rebate, did 100% of people who are eligible actually get it? Because I was a bit confused. At one point you say nobody will lose out, but then on the other, it sounded like people have to apply for it if they're not on direct debit. So do we actually get to 100% of people, or do we literally miss people out?
No, we will get to 100% of people, because if people don't apply, so the first instance is the
And then
direct debit route.
Yeah,
The-
that's
the se-
fine. I don't need to know for each one, but it's almost like, have we got a route for each of the benefits that we can make sure 100% of people will actually get them if they're eligible?
Yes, for energy rebate, yes, because in the last instance, if people don't apply, then we will then apply that £150 as a credit to their council tax bill. So we will reduce that their council tax bill with that money.
Can we achieve the 100% for every single benefit type?
So the household support fund definitely as well. So the older eligible people, we will issue vouchers as well with pensioners, like I mentioned, the post office. So it's yes, it's who is eligible at the time that will receive that support.
Okay.
Slukuma.
Yeah, mine's more on the comms bit that you'll be working on. We often get probably on from the business high street task force thing, we get links sent to us directly as councillors, so that we can forward them to people that we know, community groups, or you know, others that may want to make use of those grants, which I've been finding quite helpful. So I think probably done about 3 in the last couple of months. Is this something that actually goes out to all the councillors with a link so that it's so easy, we just forward it to any groups, or is it something that's not done? I mean, if you've sent it, then, you know, I have not seen anything.
My answer is I don't know, but I can ensure that the link to obviously we will circulate the presentation. The link to the page on the website will also go out to all the councillors.
How are you when you use the libraries? You've mentioned the 4 libraries, fine, and then you've mentioned Ealing Central Library, but could we not also look at, or us even perhaps on the panel, that may be something that you'd want to, but it's just something that I wanted to ask. I mean, there are other hubs in every ward, and you know, the councillors of each ward are also aware of those community hubs. I mean, like there's a new one opened in Ealing Broadway, so Central Library and that could actually work together, or some other community hubs. So that's something that we could actually, that'd be quite useful, just maybe not having only the library. There's lots and lots of other hubs that people can come to, because people, you know, I feel that they are in need of help.
Yeah. See, the thing is, if it's not widely publicized, it's only people that are going to the library. So, you know, it's, you know, there's lots of reasons why people might not be going to the library. So, but I'm sure they'll be working on that. So, any other questions? No. Joe, I want to thank you for your reports. I think the information about comms would be really, really helpful. And in terms of centralizing the information, in particular, the information about tackling the cost of living being centralized would be really, I mean, urgent. And also Facebook and Twitter, you know, announcements so that people are aware of that page would be really, really helpful. What I would like to say, if anyone is watching or watching back, you are not alone. If you're struggling at the moment and you're finding it difficult, there are services out there, and you can contact your counsellors, contact us. I know it's a Labour thing, we're on your side, but we're on your side. We're all on your side. I just wanted to let everyone know that the next meeting will be on the 27th of September. And thank you for the councillors and the officers. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you on the 27th of September. Thank you very much. Take care.